Welcome back to New Rockstars. I'm Erik Voss, and this is a breakdown of 2010's Predators, directed by Nimrod Antal and produced by Robert Rodriguez. A bonus installment we're doing in our Predator Rewatch series with a stacked cast, including Adrien Brody, Mahershala Ali, Walton Goggins, Lawrence Fishburne, Topher Grace, Alice Braga, Danny Trejo. Of course we had to include this one. It's wild, and I love it. Now, you're watching the public version of this breakdown, but if you want to get future episodes of this Rewatch series early and ad-free, all you have to do is hit the join button and subscribe to us as a channel member at the Rewatcher tier or higher. Thank you so much. All right, let's get into it. So Robert Rodriguez was hired to write Predators back in 1995. The script was initially denied for having too large of a budget, but the studio came back to Rodriguez 15 years later. That original script actually leaked, and there's a lot of differences. It mainly focused on Arnold Schwarzenegger's character, Dutch, returning from the first film, though it still took place on another planet with a game reserve. One thing that remained was the title, Predators, adding a mere S to the title of the first film, which was an allusion to James Cameron's Aliens. But it also has a double meaning, referring to both the Yautja hunters and the soulless killers that they're hunting. The film opens with Adrien Brody's Royce falling through the sky over a thick jungle before his parachute deploys at the last minute. An insane way to start a film. We are fully bewildered as is Royce, because we don't even learn this character's name as Royce until the final minutes of the film, unless you watch with closed captions. We can tell by the red chest panel that Royce smacks, confused as he seeks a ripcord, that this is not any human-made parachute, but tech built by the alien Yautja race, not really caring whether these life forms figure it out or not. So the casting of Adrien Brody was controversial, given the first two films' protagonists, especially the original Predator, were yoked like oxen. However, the director defended Adrien Brody, saying if we cast a Vin Diesel in that role, or if we cast anyone who is Arnold-esque, we would have been attacked for doing that. So we decided early on to go in a very different direction. But, you know, Adrien Brody still got pretty ripped for the final scene here. The movie Predators was primarily filmed in the Hawaiian jungle to recreate the tropical setting of the first film. However, some shots were shot outside Austin, Texas, like some waterfalls and the swimming holes, and that really cool area of the dried out stretch that was in Canyon Lake Gorge that does kind of look otherworldly in certain times of the year. As Royce gets his bearings, Danny Trejo's Cuchillo is the next character to drop in. Trejo is a frequent collaborator of Robert Rodriguez, having roles in the mariachi films as well as Spy Kids, so it's no surprise to see him here. Cuchillo is also Spanish slang meaning knife. He's a ruthless enforcer for the feared Los Zetas Mexican drug cartel, who carries with him twin submachine guns similar to Carl Weathers carrying around two guns in his final scene in 1987's Predator. Very quickly, a third character falls from the sky, but their parachute does not open. People online identified this poor soul as a pixel gray United States Army combat uniform. They're interrupted by Nikolai firing a minigun in a sequence that reminds us a lot of Mac from the first film, lighting the jungle up with his minigun after finding Blaine's corpse. An argument could be made that that experience in Guatemala in 1987 was just carefully studied by some of the Yautjas as prototypes of human warriors to seek out for hunting ventures like this. Nikolai in this movie is played by Oleg Taktarov, an ex-UFC fighter. He was excited for the role, describing it as the first time you get a really positive, good Russian character in an American film. I don't know if I agree with that. The Cosmonaut and Armageddon seem to fit that bill. Anyway, Royce and Cuchillo make friends with the Nikolai before encountering Alice Braga's Isabel, an IDF sniper. They also stumble upon Mombasa, a soldier from the Sierra Leone Revolutionary United Front Death Squad, played by Mahershala Ali, before he was really a household name coming after this in House of Cards. He's brawling with Walton Goggins as Stans, a death row inmate and massive creep. I'm not gonna get into it, but trust me, this dude sucks. Later, they meet Topher Grace's mild-mannered Edwin, who seems out of place among these killers, but just wait. Topher Grace was something of a big name at the time, having starred in that 70s show for several years before playing Eddie Brock in 2007's Spider-Man 3. The last member of their group is Hanzo, a Yakuza assassin played by Louis Ozawa Shangshin. They try to identify their location with Isabel ruling out Asia or Africa, saying it's too hot for this time of year. In the first Predator, it was established that the Yautja only hunt on Earth during the hottest months, and Predator 2 likewise took place during a heat wave in Los Angeles, so it makes sense that this game reserve planet is unnaturally hot, likely matching the temperature of Yautja Prime, the homeworld of the Yautja species. In Killer of Killers, we get a look at Yautja Prime. The areas we saw were arid and desert-like, though Dan Trachtenberg and one of the concept artists since confirmed that there are different biomes on Yautja Prime that became home to the different tribes and breeds of the Predators. The group finds a large metal monolith, partially overgrown with vines, surrounded by skulls and other bones. I don't think we've seen this design return, but in Killer of Killers, Yautja Prime had a surface covered in diagonal jutting stones, roughly similar to this, so this might be some shrine to their home world that the Predators leave offerings at, but also I think we're gonna learn more about the Yautja culture and their civilization in Predator Badlands. Edwin identifies a nearby plant as Archaefructus lionegensis, saying a single scratch from the goo-dripping organism would lead to paralysis. Nikolai loyally says, "You're now gonna be under my protection, Edwin," something that Edwin manipulates escalates later on in the film. Edwin puts some of the goo on his scalpel and gives Isabel an evil glance, which, among with the music sting, foreshadows his eventual betrayal of her. Interestingly enough, this plant is real, but it went extinct during the Jurassic period, so it's pretty wild that Edwin would be able to perfectly identify an extinct plant, but also not seem surprised that it's been brought back somehow. It also raises some interesting questions about the Yautja. If they have plants from Earth's Jurassic period, have they been kidnapping Earth species to hunt for over 150 million years? I mean, hey, we have seen dinosaur skulls in Predator trophy rooms before, but given the plant is poisonous, I wouldn't be surprised if the Yautja cultivated it themselves. Like, maybe they were on the lookout for new poisons on any plant they visit. It's also possible that this plant was an extraterrestrial invasive species that came from other past alien civilizations, and the predators have just been holding on to it. Who knows where all plants come from? Isabel notices something about this place is off by putting a leaf in a pool of water along with a small piece of metal on that leaf. This is a real world trick that you can do to fashion a makeshift compass, as the metal, assuming it's magnetic, will generally align north and south, but here the leaf keeps spinning, unable to orient. So on Earth, our magnetic poles are generated by the motion of molten iron within our planet's core. So when this leaf keeps spinning, it suggests that the planet has no stable magnetic field, either because its core solidified or its internal motion is just more chaotic. Over time, a world like that would be exposed to intense radiation and lose much of its atmosphere, making it a dangerous place for humans to live without protection. This is very similar to Mars, which lost its dynamic core billions of years ago. But if the same thing happened here, this planet might actually be in its death throes. In a few billion years, all that would be left is a barren, rocky surface. This could point to some expanded lore for the game reserve planet. Maybe the Yautja used to have a larger presence here, but moved off-world when the core solidified, and now only uses it as these hunting grounds while waiting for the atmosphere to deteriorate completely. And interestingly, one of the side effects of being bombarded with radiation would be aurora-like lights, which we do see later in the film. But Royce confirms that something weird is going on with this planet by noting that the sun hasn't moved since we got here, meaning the game reserve planet just has some very long days. Mombasa sets off some traps near a collection of some airdropped cages, including a swinging log. This feels like a callback to the traps of the first film, set by Dutch. Something similar happened here, as these were set off by a soldier that the predators were hunting. Isabel locates the trap setter's corpse, which has a massive hole in his chest. I'm betting he was killed by a plasma caster, as the wounds look similar to what Jesse Ventura's Blaine has suffered. Then, as Mombasa stares into the canopy, we get our first shot of the Predator's classic infrared heat vision. This has been a staple of the franchise ever since the first film, and these point of view shots do really add to the feeling of the characters being stalked by, a predator. And of all the Predator movies that have come out since the first one, this does feel the most like the experience of watching the very first film, where just one character, who is somehow the savviest among them, like in this case I would say Mahershala Ali, just looks up in the tree line and senses something that we cannot even see with our naked eye for the first half hour of this movie. The group comes to an overlook with a view of the horizon with no less than 4 other planets and moons visible. The two in the far distance appear to be a planet and moon, both of which are degrading and have massive holes blown into them. These could be planets the Yautja conquered and turned into hunting grounds, or perhaps they found the ruins left after some war or natural disaster. Walton Goggins starts to freak out because he doesn't have a gun and yeah, sucks to suck. Of course, we know the predators won't hunt if you're unarmed, so actually having no weapons would be safer for Stans. They're then attacked by these spiky lizard dogs. These are called hellhounds. These are the pets of the tracker predator. Their design is based on one of the skulls seen in the trophy room in Predator 2. I think you can see it to the right of the xenomorph skull in that movie. Royce beheads one of the hellhounds, and we get this sick shot of its jaw still twitching afterward, but the rest of the dogs are called off by a whistle right before they can cause any major deaths, and Royce surmises that they were sent in to flush the prey out, to study their responses. And while it seems like there were no major deaths, one of the hellhounds got somebody, Cuchillo. They start hearing him calling for help, but they find his body sitting with his back to them. Of course, he's already dead, just like Danny Trejo ended up being in Breaking Bad. The cries are created by the same mimicking device that the Predator used to copy the laughter in the first Predator film and the shit happens in Predator 2. Isabel, thinking he's still alive, is hesitant to leave him wounded and shoots him. This is later contextualized when we learn she watched her spotter bleed to death, and she wishes she could just put him out of their misery. The group finds a Yautja camp filled with skinned carcasses and trophies, including a Yautja skull. Predators just love displaying corpses of all kinds. Other than the first film, we saw this a lot in Predator 2, with the various gang member corpses in Los Angeles being displayed gruesomely. There's a Neanderthal skull to the left of the human skull, which is another clue that the Predators have been hunting human species for a long time, like potentially before we were true Homo sapiens. This scene is reminiscent of the scene in the first film where Dutch finds the remains of one of the soldiers sent before them, but it's subverted by the discovery of the still breathing classic Yautja, also tied up among the carnage. This is a jungle hunter, the same variety of Yautja that hunted Dutch in Guatemala. This version of the Yautja is played by Derek Mears, predators, and he's the same relative size and look as the Predator from the first film. They establish him here in the first half of the movie just to give the audience a sense of scale of the larger super predators that would tie this guy up. The costumes and prosthetics for this film were led by Greg Nicotero's team, the Wiz and the amazing team behind the practical makeup and gore on titles like The Walking Dead. Mombasa, who seemed to have some ability to sense the Predator since he was the first one staring at in the trees earlier, is the first to be taken out. And it feels like a crime to do that to Mahershala Ali, considering he might arguably be the biggest star among these names later on in his career. He's first shot through the chest with a stake and impaled by a spear. The Yautja return their fire with plasma cannons, whose trademark triple laser sights track the group as they retreat. The group are tracked by a drone, which flies back to its master, and we get a good look at our antagonists, the wiry Falconer Predator, played by Brian Steele, which the drone attaches to, and then the Hellhound commanding Tracker Predator, whose mask includes tusks from the Hellhounds. He's also played by Brian Steele in this movie, and the Berserker Predator, played by Carrie Jones, which is script adorably referred to as Mr. Black, who, if you look closely, has a xenomorph mandible on his helmet. I love anytime alien Easter eggs show up in these movies. They cannot resist the Alien versus Predator matchups. These three are known as the Super Predators, a special breed of larger, more aggressive Yautja. Apparently, there was an interview with a Hungarian magazine where the director said that these predators were outcasts and might be forced to live on the game reserve, but I couldn't find the original source for this. Today's video is sponsored by Blue Chew, October's spooky season. And if you're stumped on costume ideas because you can't think of anything scarier than erectile dysfunction, Blue Chew can help. Blue Chew is the original brand offering chewable tablets for better sex. These erection-enhancing tablets help men achieve stronger, harder, and longer-lasting erections for sexual activities. And look, the guy who writes our ad copy wanted me to let you know that he wrote so many double entendres that got deleted because they were just too gross. So we'll say for a Halloween-themed Blue Chew ad, the safest bet is to say, Blue Chew will help you raise the dead, where in this case, what's dead is your penis, metaphorically speaking. Getting started with Blue Chew is super easy. Just sign up at bluechew.com, consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. You can take Blue Chew anytime, day or night. That way you can plan ahead or be ready for whenever some succubus glances your way. It's all done online. That means no visits to the doctor's office, no awkward conversations, and no waiting in line at the pharmacy. Blue Chew's tablets are made in the USA and prepared and shipped direct to your door in a discreet package. And we've got a special deal for our listeners. As always, get your first month of Blue Chew free. Just use the promo code Rockstars at checkout and pay $5 for shipping. That's it. Join Blue Chew's mission to upgrade humanity one thrust at a time. Head to bluechew.com for more details and safety info. Big thanks to Blue Chew for sponsoring this podcast. As they regroup, Isabel recounts the events of the first Predator from 1987, saying 6 men plus a CIA liaison, that would be referring to Carl Weathers' Dylan, were hunted by a Predator in 1987 Guatemala. It's interesting that the Israeli defense got word of the Predator from what sounds like a testimony given by Dutch to other CIA contacts, but Royce, who worked with the US Army, did not get that information. But you know, it would make sense depending on what his rank within the Army would be, especially since he was working in Black Ops and seemed to be compartmentalized in a specific way. Isabella even mentions how Dutch used mud to block the classic Predator's infrared vision, which will come back later. So using Edwin as bait, they try to lure out the Predators, but instead are attacked by an insectoid species called a river ghost in this film. So the river ghost was originally supposed to have a much bigger role in the film, stalking the characters for longer and leading them to believe it was the one responsible for their being on the planet. In another draft of the script, the creature was originally supposed to have been found near a river and be barely seen, behaving almost like a ghost or an apparition. Actually, it was from this draft that the creature earned its moniker of River Ghost. The River Ghost was originally conceived as a means to display the original unused Predator design created for that movie by Voss Film Studios, although it was later decided to make the creature a completely original design. Despite this change of direction, the creature still bears some similarities to the original Predator design, most notably the appearance of its head and its backwards bending legs. During the production of this film, Greg Nicotero had seen a sculpture by Takayuki Takea called the Erosive Guyver, and it was this that later heavily influenced the design direction of what we see as the River Ghost. Another influence were the creatures from the planet Metaluna in the 1955 film This Island Earth. But this thing gets quickly killed off. So now the group runs into Noland, a United States Army Air Force cavalry soldier who has survived by hiding for multiple hunting cycles. He calls them over by whispering, "Over here, turn around," which was also whispered in the first movie by Duke to Dylan when he first went looking for him. At first we think, damn, are all these Predators sharing notes with each other on the humans that they've killed? Answer, yeah, probably. But in this case, it seems like it's just a meta callback. Noland is played by Lawrence Fishburne, who worked with Untall and Armored, which came out a year prior. Noland has gone a little nuts over the years, singing to himself and talking to an invisible friend, but he's all decked out in scavenged Yautja armor and has acquired one of their plasma casters and cloaking devices. I like to think that his imaginary friend was just Dutch. Like, I know that that wouldn't have been Dutch's fate in the timeline of the Predator franchise, but maybe in this version of the movie, it would have been Dutch that he was talking to. Nolan takes him into his home inside a giant abandoned vehicle. He says it's a drill that someone left behind. Now, fans have compared its exterior to the Tesotech, the mining refinery that was being towed by the Nostromo in the first Alien film from 1979. They've also compared it to the Sulaco, which had a similar spiky protrusions in its design. The interior also bears resemblance to the cramped industrial hallways of the Nostromo as well. I mean, technically, Weyland-Yutani did not exist as a spacefaring organization at this point in time in the 2010s, right? But back in 2010, when this movie came out, that was before Prometheus came out and started to update the Alien film universe timeline. So who knows? Maybe the plan was for this to be Weyland-Yutani to have a drilling operation on some dangerous planet only to abandon it. The director and producer never confirmed what this planet was in the Yautja Empire other than just a game reserve used for hunting, being terraformed over the years by the Yautjas to resemble Earth's terrain. Robert Rodriguez has said that the mainstream predators would dump their outcasts on this planet for unknown reasons, and then the super predators would come here for hunting prey and experimenting on themselves. But I do just love all these little world details like this drilling equipment and these various monument pillars that were left around by the predators who were there. I guess it's kind of like to imply what Alien vs. Predator established as the Mayan backstory for the species. Like there may just be some cultural elements that remain true to them here. While Alien vs. Predator and Requiem are considered not canonical, this 2010 movie is still based on the references to the events in Guatemala, and I just like the idea that all the monolith-esque pillars of our ancient human civilizations might have been inspired by the Yautjas over the years. Nolan says the super predators hunt the smaller ones out of some sort of blood feud, and the Yautja are especially interested when one of their own ranks are killed, as they want to learn from whatever killed it. This would explain why we see so much variation of predators over the years, as different clans and hunting parties experience different tactics in their prey, and kind of explains why the Lost Tribe at the end of Predator 2 were respectful to Danny Glover's character. Hanzo finds a katana. In Killer of Killers, the predators hunted two brothers in 1600s Japan. This could be a trophy from a similar excursion. Hanzo also is missing two fingers, stemming from a practice in the Yakuza called gibitsume, which is self-mutilation as a form of atonement. They traditionally cut off the pinky first, as it weakens one's sword grip. Remember this, because our boy later cuts down a predator despite this handicap. Nolan turns on the group and lights a fire, trying to smoke them out and steal their gear, but we never know for sure because the predators turn up and Nolan gets plasma cannoned to smithereens. The director lights his sequence with moody red and blue flares, and it's some of the best cinematography in the movie. I specifically love the moment where Irwin uses a blue lit flare and throws it and just happens to connect with a predator who's standing there invisibly. During the escape, Nikolai blows himself up and the tracker predator in a fiery sacrifice. I love the reversal on it because this is what most predators do. They hit their self-destruct function on their wrist and then take everyone out with them. Nikolai gets the last laugh in this case. Then the berserker takes out Stans, who I have to say, definitely had it coming. Stans gets treated to one of the Predator's more iconic modes of execution when his spinal cord is ripped out. Hanzo stays behind to 1v1 the Falconer with his sword in a sequence very reminiscent of Billy's final stand in the first film, complete with very similar music. Hanzo strips off his shirt. Unlike Billy's death, we actually get to see this fight. Say what you will about the Predators, but the Falconer could have just blown Hanzo away Indiana Jones style, but no! Due to the code that drives all these Predators, he has to fight him honorably with his claws. So the director was a fan of Kendo, the Japanese sword-based martial art that Chang Zhen was also proficient in, and wanted this scene to look authentic. We get some amazing shots in the sequence, like this bird's eye view of Hanzo falling backward as the wind blows in the long grass. Hanzo takes the Predator out with an awesome dash attack and then succumbs to his own injuries. RIP to a real one. Edwin is maimed in a trap as they escape. We get an idea of his sneakier side as he uses a photo that Nikolai showed him of his kids and claims they're his own, hoping to gain some sympathy when Royce wants to use him as a trap. It doesn't work on Royce, but Isabel falls for it and stays behind to help. Royce returns to the captive jungle hunter and frees him, hoping he'll be able to become friends with this jungle hunter and use him to pilot the ship away from this planet. After a badass suiting up sequence, the jungle hunter shows Royce a hologram of Earth. He knows how to get there. Unfortunately, the berserker predator drags Edwin and Isabel back to the camp, coming face to face with the other two. The jungle hunter and the super predator growl back and forth. Royce lets them fight, and it's a pretty epic duel that ends with the jungle hunter getting beheaded. Edwin finally does his betrayal, scratching Isabel with that poison scalpel. He reveals that back on Earth, he was considered a murderer and a freak. Yeah, our dude is a serial killer, yet still was a doctor. I'm terrified to know what he was actually doing and how he carried out his deaths. Did he kill people on the operating table? Was he someone like Dexter who would follow them home? Ugh. He says that he likes it here. I don't understand what his end game is, because eventually these predators are going to kill him, but you know, he's just clearly not well. Meanwhile, the Yautja craft, we think, having Royce in it, takes off, only for the Berserker to be like, I don't need this, and activates its self-destruct sequence. In the first Predator, the Yautja also self-destructed when it was bested by Dutch, so it seems like they just wire all their stuff with explosives. Royce helps Isabel out of the hole, but I assume he must have heard some of Edwin's evil monologue, because when Edwin goes to ambush him, he's prepared and stabs him up through the jaw. Leading to our final showdown, the Berserker Predator returns, scanning his campsite with his visor, which highlights what looks like different body parts and splotches of blood. I mean, hey, maybe if you weren't as messy, my man, you could have seen what's living and what's not. But here he finds a dying Edwin, who is booby-trapped with explosives. Royce's earlier plan was finally carried out. As the Berserker stands, Royce is there waiting for him, conspicuously shirtless. Look, yes, Brody did get ripped for this, but that's not what we look from you, Adrien Brody. You're an amazing actor in your own right. People like Arnold Schwarzenegger, that's really like their best asset. You do not need to do this, but you know, if you're gonna be cast in a Predator movie, and if you've already gotten ripped and already committed to that kind of macho energy is gonna go to your head. He is covered in mud, just like Dutch was in the first movie. All of this obviously is meant to be reminiscent of the final fight in the first film. I mean, Royce even repeats some of the dialogue from that scene, saying, "Come on, do it, kill me." Can't you sense that Adrien Brody's almost doing an Austrian accent when he says this?
Come on. I'm here, kill me. Come on. Come on. Do it now, kill me.
Yes, it's very silly, but at this point we're already invested in the movie and I'm very much enjoying this. Royce blinds a Berserker with the fire and uses hit and run tactics. He ultimately hacks a Berserker to death with an axe, following an assist from a wounded Isabel. The movie ends with Royce and Isabel wounded but alive, watching a new flock of parachutes descend. So the character of Isabel returned as a playable character in the video game Predator Hunting Grounds. It's not clear if that's considered canon, but we learned that Royce and Isabel survived for several months before recovering 2 ships. Isabel returned to Earth while Royce went in search of more Yautja to fight. Given this, I could totally imagine him as one of the gladiators and Yautja killer of killers kept on ice for their special tournaments, like if we kept seeing other people besides Naru and Dutch and Danny Glover. Maybe Royce would have been in one of those stacks. Over the credits, Longtail Sally by Little Richard plays, which was a song played over the stereo in the helicopter at the start of the 1987 Predator film. I very much enjoyed this movie, and I gotta say, after 2 lackluster Alien vs. Predator films in the aughts, this movie reinvigorated the Predator franchise for me. And for that reason, I'm glad we were able to revisit it as part of this rewatch series. I hope there are some Easter eggs from it in Predator Badlands. But next week, you will see our breakdown of 2022's Prey, Dan Trachtenberg's first Predator movie. Big thanks to Noah Chen for writing this breakdown, and comment down below with your thoughts on this movie. Special thanks to one of our YouTube members, Rick Denmon, for supporting us at the executive producer level. Follow me at EA Voss and subscribe to all the channels in the new Rockstars network for breakdowns and news coverage of everything you love. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.